Okay, we probably get started. I had a lot to say to that tonight, and then wouldn't you know it, it's a night where they're telling me to shut up. And that's tough, because what I was going to say can't be done mellow. We'll see what happens. I'll do my best. I think the first thing we're still on the Beatitudes. I hope we're not going insane with this. I feel like you could stay here forever. And I really, what I really want is for it to be driven home. And I am going to get, I'm inviting any one of you now to print out the Beatitudes in a nice giant poster for the center. Or to work with me, collaborate with me on how to do that. Anyone who can do such a thing. Because it seems as if it's insane that we didn't have them up all the time. And because it's your perfect map. It's your perfect map for the entire way. If you ever wonder, well, geez, it seems confusing. What do I do? They're right there. It's laid out so perfectly. The Beatitudes are the summation of the whole journey. And anything any mystic has ever experienced, or any saint has ever experienced on the path, is summed up in the Beatitudes. So it's everything we need. And so I really want to, we're going to stay in them maybe a couple more weeks. I keep thinking we're going to leave, and then I can't. We're not allowed. I'm not allowed. So today, the focus is on the next two for the most part. But here's the thing I want to say first to everybody in here. It's very tricky. Everything's really tricky. I read a lot of varied theology when I first got into the Christian system. And I wondered, how could they have such wildly different understandings of the scripture? How could people have such sort of wildly different takes on it? And some of that turned out to be because they don't consult the Desert Fathers. Some of it just turned out to be solvable. They just don't consult history. So every person reads it from their point of view today, says, here's what it means to me. And then that's a mess, obviously. Because there's deep, deep meaning in the scriptures that you can't just read the scripture. You can't separate it from theology, or you don't get it. There's no way to get it. And the Beatitudes are obviously so much like that. But what I wanted to say before we got into the Beatitudes is, because there's so many different ways to take everything, and there's so many different ways to present it, and those different presentations create different outcomes, long-term in people's spiritual health. So it's a heavy weight of responsibility to even talk about Scripture because of the way it will influence people. So I just wanted to say today that our emphasis is on completing the journey to union with God before we're dead. So that raises the bar, and we see these incredible heights of what Scripture is alluding to and speaking of. The play, Joseph Campbell did a speech once. I listened to him, and he was talking about Moses. And he said, Moses' ascent on Mount Sinai is not so different from the Buddha's oceanic enlightenment experience. So there's these incredible heights that we can rise to, and that they're embedded in the scriptures for us to discover. And our emphasis has to be on coming into union with God. And that means, on the one end, we're delighted by these incredible, spacious, open, infinite possibilities. But on the other end, it can make someone who's doing really well think they're just not doing much yet. And so I just thought think of this. I knew a person who took great joy in being a meditator. Okay? Filled with joy. Walked around as a spiritual being. Everyone he met, that would find out he meditated, he was looked up to, seen as a spiritual person. Eventually he began to teach meditation at various places, teaching. And when I met him, I found out he only meditated a couple times a week. But his joy was true, and his love of it was true, and some of the good he felt, like, I'm a spiritual guy, I meditate. Some of that wasn't just, I mean, there's some ego there, we know, but there was some good there too, right? So when you hear the Beatitudes, and I'm describing the sort of height of what they can mean, don't be so quick to exclude yourself from them. You know, you might say, I'm never meek. You might think to yourself, I'm never meek. Well, I don't believe that. Not all the way. No way. You're showing up twice a day when you don't want to receive God's healing and power. Maybe that took you a couple of years to get where you'd show up twice a day, and you just kept coming knowing that you can't pull it off, but eventually you were brought to a place where you could. There's got to be some meekness in there, right? That can't be just you're a person of total self-will. When I met Father Patrick, I was less trained in theology, and certainly mystical theology, than I am now, and I was more concerned about not knowing the way. Even though I probably spent 4 hours a day in prayer at that time. So I was very concerned I might not make it, and meeting him was a huge help. Clyde had died, I sort of scattered, it was a big thing. Well, he said, I think you are genuinely on this path because you're worried you're not. He said the people that are never worried are probably not taking it that seriously. So you worry about it, that means you love it. So what I'm trying to say is like a pastoral message is there aren't any Beatitudes here that you don't have some of. No way. No way. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. I'm sure you don't want to walk around saying, look how pure of heart I am. But there's no possible way that your heart is not more pure today than it was when you came. There's no way. Right? There's just no way. Is it white as the driven snow? Glowing with... maybe not yet. Maybe sometimes it is. Maybe sometimes it is. But nobody should... The danger of always presenting the fullness of what we're going for, the good of it is that we get to go because we know the way and it's expected of us. But the danger of it is holding yourself to an impossibly high standard while you're a work in progress and while it all is happening inside of you. And that's tricky because our friend we're talking about now, who's teaching meditation before meditating more than a couple times a day, I think he allowed himself more joy than some of you do. I think he allowed himself more self-esteem than some of you do. You're only cranking out, an hour and a half a day, and then you spend a little too much time on YouTube. It's like you're such a failure. But this friend we're talking about is only a couple times a day did he even meditate, and the rest of the time kind of went around just making sure people knew he was super spiritual. Haven't you come so far already? And even if, what if you're in that pre-night stage where you're being invited to give up a whole bunch of stuff and you're just saying, no way. I mean, I'm going to keep coming, and the answer obviously is yes, but no, I won't. Doesn't it take something great to keep coming? Waiting for that opportunity to give your heart over. Isn't there something really beautiful in that? Isn't there humility in that? Isn't there poverty of spirit in that? My daughter's got Teresa of Avila's mind, which means that her mind never stops. She's been meditating since she was 4, every day, twice a day. Her mind stops when she gets conked out in meditation, if she gets conked out. Otherwise, it just runs like a rabbit the whole time. Some of you must be able to relate, or at least could relate when you came in. Isn't there poverty of spirit in showing up every day anyway? Wouldn't you say there's some great humility in that? How many people come and quit just because they're, not to pick on it, not to make it sound harsh, but their ego just can't allow them to participate in something they're not already good at? To find the humility to say, look, I suck at this, but I want to be a part of it anyway. So if you think of the Beatitudes, don't always hold them over your head. Here's what the saints had, the fullness of them. Here's what they look like when they're complete. There has to be some time for enjoying. I never say, like, if I meet people, I never say, I'm a really spiritual person. But aren't you a little bit of a spiritual person? Can't that be just true in your heart sometimes? Can't you know that? One kind of Christianity, I'm not going to name them, it doesn't really matter, we don't care, they're all good anyway. One kind of Christianity, the bar is so low they're celebrating every day. Celebrating being saved every day. No notion whatsoever of having to undo childhood trauma, family dysfunction. That isn't even on the radar, but celebrating being saved. So that, whatever that is, that truth, we shouldn't lose sight of that on the contemplative path just because the journey is long. Just because the heights are so high. It's like with our band, I know where we want to be, I know where we can be, I know where we are. If I only compare where we are to where I want us to be, it always seems terrible. But there's another perspective, from where we came. Then sometimes it's pretty good. Pretty amazing. I couldn't even talk to people when I started the path. I couldn't look people in the eye. I could beat someone up, or I could cower. I had no middle ground whatsoever of any kind. Shaking with fear around people. So bad I grew things on my face out of embarrassment and shame for existing. I've come a long way, a really long way. There's something there to celebrate, be grateful for. You guys are no different. One last element to that, maybe sometimes hovering over another level of purification. And I will say, when I'm right in it, I am certain I haven't grown at all. I'm certain that every single defect of character that I was so grateful to be beyond 9 months ago is absolutely driving every single thing I do in every way. That's perspective. It's that feels true, but if I step back, not true, and still true. It's true. Totally true, but it's true at another level. It's all perspective. So this perspective relates to these other next two Beatitudes. Kind of, I think. I don't know if I can say it well. This has gone better than I thought it would go. I'll say that. But let me just read up to where we're going to go, because you can't get enough of these. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. See if you can't realize you have some of these when you read them this time, instead of just what you ought to do and you're not doing. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So it's really the last two we just read that we're focused on, but we're focused on tonight. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. And blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. But you can't really talk about these without talking about the first three, even though it's all we ever do is talk about the first three. But remember, I want to make sure that it cements into our hearts and minds that this is an organic, natural progression of spiritual elements. These are the blessings. Beatitudes are the blessings. That's why Jesus keeps saying, blessed are they who do this. They're blessings God puts upon a soul. And they're shining down on you right now. They're shining down in your soul. God is never not shining them upon you. They're blessings. God pours out blessings upon humanity. They're pouring out on our souls all the time. And we're always receiving them. We're always marinating them and soaking them up. But that poverty, that grouping of the poverty and mourning and meekness, that's foundation. That's ground. That's getting in reality. That's healing the rift between us and God, which Christianity says is ultimately rebellion if you look under everything. Ultimately, Christianity thinks under it all, the root problem is rebellion. I'll do what I want. And it's such a tragedy because it's the same as a fish saying, I won't live in water. It's a tragedy because we fell so far that we could come to see our vocation as beings created to live in enlightenment, in union with God, created for that purpose, that we could come to see that as something to rebel against. So you can see the first three are foundation there. Everything. It's the whole. You could see how it's like what Teresa Avila says about people that have gone through the first night, and there's now nothing that could possibly keep them from the seventh stage of prayer, unless they just don't take time for it. Because the ultimate rift has been healed in them. Still full of impurities. Not to make it steep tonight again, but it's just endless impurities. But the needed elements to go all the way into union with God have been planted in the soul. That's why right after that, Jesus speaks of hungering and thirsting for righteousness. Because Teresa Avila said the fourth stage shouldn't exist. I hope she said that. I think she might have said the third. Third shouldn't exist. It's not a stopping place. It's a beginning place. It's a beginning place. But life gets good. Life is good. Maybe you could be too busy to do it. With the good life. Too busy with the good life. No more time for quiet walks in the night. I have to say though, if you're like me and you had no ability to be a human being, I think God might want you to stop there a while and be a human being. Experience what that it means. Some of us started as worms, and to just be a human being is a massive point of celebration. For a bit of time there to enjoy it. So then it's, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. And I don't have a whole bunch to say about this, but I first of all, notice how he doesn't put that first, because you can't be merciful yet. There's some things that have got to be in place. There's got to be some surrender and some security that you find in God in an unjust world. How are we to forgive if we haven't yet found our foundation in God? The world is unjust and cruel, and you're supposed to forgive that. You have no sense of foundation, nowhere to put your head, nowhere to safely exist. That's hard. That's why there's these things God gives us first, so we could do it. But everyone's already doing some of it. Already. Everyone's already doing some of this, for sure. But notice the reciprocal relationship there. And I wanted to use an example. I knew somebody who I think never judged. Or if they judged, it never, ever crossed their face or words. And it was Clyde. I knew someone who never judged. The worst thing he ever said about someone, he apologized the next day. And it was mild for me. He didn't judge. And you know what he also rarely ever experienced? Any sense of condemnation. Does it make sense? Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. The opposite of that, Jesus also said, judge not lest you be judged. So this beatitude, this blessing, it begins to find a way to forgive the world. And it begins to find a way to love the world in spite of its sinfulness and danger, harshness. It begins to address the reasons that lie in the heart that make it so we can't forgive, can't be merciful, don't want to be. And I have to say this, and there's a part here that's pastoral, there's a part that would require spiritual direction. What I ran into trouble today with was, there are people coming from a lot of different places here, and if I say one thing, it'll make them feel excluded, when they're not. But if I say the other thing, it'll make these guys think they have it when they don't. It's tricky business. Because it really has to come to where you're coming from, your orientation. Some of us were worms, different journey. Different journey. Some of us had pretty good experiences throughout life. Very different journey. But it at some point it becomes, yes, I will have goodwill and love towards all human beings. And that can be done without going into denial about the reality of sin. It's not, I will say, I think the New Age, the part of the New Age I was involved in made this easy at first. It made it easy, actually. We just didn't believe sin existed. We believed everyone was asleep and dreaming bad dreams. So there was no harm to forgive. None of it was happening. And that made it easy to forgive it. It created some other kinds of big problems that turned out to be untenable for a long-term journey. But that part of forgiving the world for what it had never done was the way it was phrased to us. Forgive the sin that has never actually been done, it said. You're just dreaming. No children have been hurt. But you could see how that could make someone take the leap of forgiveness. It led to some other atrocities. Like doing really bad things and saying, hey man, none of it's really happening. Not being able to take the gravity of sin seriously and address it. There are problems. But just think of it in this way. Without any kind of denial, without falling into denial and untruth and illusion. It's almost as if the only one holding you outside of union is you. Through judgment. Jesus says, judge not lest you be judged. And the same measure you use to judge me, measure to you. And the fool says, well, I don't steal, so I can judge those thieves. It's not that. It's the degree of harshness. It's the intensity of that is held to you. By you. It's an organic thing. It's not God saying, you smack them, I smack you. It's God saying, when you smack them, you smack you. When you put them outside of love, you put yourself outside of love. The Beatitude of Mercy wants to give others mercy so they can go to heaven. So they're not hated by you, so they're loved by you. It wants to give them love for them. But it also wants to give them mercy so you can experience mercy. It doesn't want to hold anyone out so you're not held out. It's afraid of judging. Because it now hungers for righteousness. It has dined upon it. And it doesn't want to lose it. And it wants more of it. And if you're like me, that brings you back to maybe mourning sometimes and humility, because wounds, disorders are why we can't let everyone in. So then we want to be healed more so we can let everyone in. So when we feel weak and broken and hurt and treated unfairly, we're maybe not as generous. So God's got to heal some of that so we could be generous with others. Jesus said, be as innocent as doves and as wise as serpents. If your wife slanders you methodically, that forgiveness doesn't look like being stupid, does it? There's forgiveness there, but there can't be also, here, slander me again. Here, stab me in the heart. There has to be wisdom. Innocent as doves, wise as serpents. It doesn't make us fools in the world. Freedom of association still exists there. So you think of those elements, those ingredients, right up to mercy, okay? From poverty of spirit to mercy. Still hungering for it, making time for it, thirsting for God, all the way to mercy, right to blessed are the pure in heart. I want one thing only, God for everyone, heaven for everyone, love for everyone. Wants to exclude no one. You're glad it's a free gift for everyone. You hope someone who comes after you has it easier. Only two things I want to say now. One is, remember, you have all of this to some degree. I know children flock to Lauren. Why? Isn't it because they experience mercy and charity in her presence? Pure mercy and charity. Isn't that why? Everyone, we have this. Yes, we can have more. This is the last thing I want to say, and it's super important. I'm not even done purifying, so I got work to do, and that's it, you know? It's a priority. Today I didn't eat. Just, you know, I just need a little emptiness there so I can experience whatever it is. Touch it. I had tears today, don't know why, but I was able to weep. I don't know why. I'm glad for that. I want that. But sometimes Sometimes you have to sit down and put all your issues aside and be with God. The word for me is adoration. Just, okay, you've lots to do still, yep. But put all that away sometimes. Set it down. Sit under that tree and appreciate God's presence that you already have. At some point, the Beatitudes go out from oneself into the other. That's love. It's love. And you don't have to wait till you're done to do that. You could just sometimes. Here's the visualization I used to use. I used to have a big safe in the ground in my mind that glowed with white light. It was a God safe, and I'd put everyone that bugged me in it and all the issues that I have that are unresolved and unhealed in it, and close it and seal it off. Then move over there and sit under that tree for a while. And say, hey, maybe I could just spend time with God right now and not. I mean, it's got to be about fixing brokenness. It's the first 3 Beatitudes, man. But, it can't only be about that. At some point it moves out to the other. To God and to the God that lives in everyone we know. In the trees. The squirrels and stuff. Cats. And all work and no play. No good, huh? Yes, work on the brokenness. It's there. I'm not done. I'm going to do it. I want to be done. I want to stand at the mountaintop. But I'm not there yet. So I can put that aside and go sit under the tree with God. Anyway, appreciate that. Seeing God runs the gamut all the way from just a perception change. Oh yeah, God is in everything, right? Yes. All the way to seeing heaven. And that's all that beatitude and everything in between.